Українське сонце зійшло, хай яскраво світить воно.
721, this is a song for Ukrainian Independence Day today. Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine. And Joe, despite the war, I imagine there is some celebrating there today.
Yeah, Bob. Well, good afternoon from Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. I arrived here this morning by train from Kharkiv, and yeah, you know, there's a sense of joy. You know, this is why Ukrainians are fighting to be free. It was in 1991 on August 24th when the Ukrainian Rada voted to break away from the Soviet Union. As we mentioned yesterday, Washington discouraged that, but the Ukrainian people said we will be free. And here one of the greetings is Sviatem, which means may the holy day be with you. And this song that we're listening to, I recently heard it in a taxi on another trip to Kyiv. I was pulling in via train early in the morning. The sun was rising over Kyiv. I saw people riding their bikes, people on buses going to work, kids walking to school, watching the city wake up. And, you know, you think about when those first 3 days of the full-scale invasion, when everyone here thought that there would be guerrilla warfare in the streets. And so when I was in the taxi, this song was playing by a Ukrainian band, Kozak System, and it means the Ukrainian sun has risen. Ukrainsky Sonce zishlo. And the words go, the Ukrainian sun has risen, let it shine brightly, paid dearly. We will not forgive them, paid dearly. We will not forgive them. And as I say those words, right now I'm speaking to you from the studios of Ukrainska Pravda, which means Ukrainian truth. It's independent media here in Kyiv. You know, still, despite the war, still free, still independent, still keeping up the tradition of free speech. And this online newspaper was founded in the year 2000 by a Tbilisi, Georgia-born Ukrainian called I mispronounced his name, Gregory Gongadze. And he was part of this tradition of people, you know, in those difficult times of the late 90s, early 2000s, fighting the corruption, you know, rising up against the Russian interests that were trying to control Ukraine. Only a few months after he started this newspaper, from whose offices I'm speaking, he was assassinated. He was found dead in a forest outside of Kyiv. And so it's a reminder of, you know, how difficult this struggle has been. Here, I was just speaking with my friend Taras Bick. We started a new podcast called The Land of the Free. And Taras is a great Ukrainian who, among other projects, he's working on the breakup of the Russian Federation. And, you know, 18 months ago, that seemed like such an impossible thing, but there's we see new cracks and fissures that, you know, as we look at, for example, what happened, that extraordinary news with the plane that crashed, killing Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner group, through the night. We do see perhaps some new weaknesses. But when I was speaking with my friend Taras about, you know, can there be some kind of dissolution of the Kremlin and a breakup of the Russian Federation? He pointed out that there was in the Chechen Republic, which is one of the many republics of the Russian Federation, there was a freedom fighter there named Zhokhar Dudayev, and he also was assassinated by the Russians in 1996. But before he was killed, he said, this is the Chechen freedom fighter, he said, remember my words, Russia will disappear when the Ukrainian sun rises. And, you know, as I think of those words, as we think of the lyrics of that song, the Ukrainian sun is rising. And as I look at Kyiv around me today, certainly there's apprehension. Will Russia try something extraordinary today? But the city is alive. There's not big parties in the street, but there's a great sense of confidence and this feeling of the sun rising.
Joseph, what are people saying there about the Prigozhin plane crash? 10 killed in all, and the others were members of his Wagner group, and they were very effective on the battlefield for Putin. So is there a feeling that this will translate to maybe in some cases a little bit of an easier time for some of the Ukrainian forces?
Well, yeah, you know, the first thing, there's a book by a British journalist and academic, Peter Pomerantsev, about Russia. And it's an extraordinary book. It's called Nothing is True and Everything is Possible, The Surreal Heart of the New Russia. He wrote that several years ago. And so that title is very helpful in these cases. I personally never trust any information coming out of Russia. We can never get too excited about it. The second thing is Prigozhin, and I noticed this in most of the stories, about the plane crash and what seems to be his death. He's known as the Butcher of Bakhmut. It was his Wagner group that destroyed that city of Bakhmut. So many Ukrainians lost life and limb, whether they were civilians or soldiers, because of the ruthless tactics of the Wagner group. And so this guy was not a saint. And in fact, his Telegram channels, affiliated with the Wagner group, they're saying that they're taking glory that he's in hell. That's an idea that they like. This is a reminder of how evil and nasty these people are. But I think it certainly is a sign of weakness in Russia because 18 months ago, February 24th, people were afraid. They were afraid of the Kremlin. They were afraid of Wagner. And now we see things, even if this is some kind of orchestration, it's a sign of weakness that they're not all together on the same page. It still is a very strange story. Prigozhin made a video seemingly a couple of days ago, seemingly from Africa, and then he's flying back around Russia. It's always with Russia, it's hard to know what's going on, and that's why here no one's dancing in the street. But there's a focus on what Ukrainians need to do to keep winning. Interestingly, Prigozhin was referred to by many as Putin's chef. He was the only guy that Putin trusted to take care of his catering and meals. Putin is very afraid of being poisoned. And just a strange historical connection that Putin's grandfather was chef to Stalin and to Rasputin. Rasputin, the crazy sorcerer who helped bring about the Russian Revolution in some ways. And so there's this long distrust. Russian leaders are, whether they're in Soviet times or communist times or now, the person who's closest to them is the person in charge of their food, because they live in this atmosphere of complete distrust, where everyone's trying to stab everyone in the back. And I think we see a little bit of that with what seems to be the death of Prigozhin in this plane crash.
Before we let you go, Joe, a couple of texts came in after our talk the other day. Bob, the Notre Dame conversation with Joseph really put a sense of reality into the situation he's in over in Ukraine. Thank you for doing this each day. And then this message, kudos to Joseph Lindsley's reporting from the war in Ukraine. He is a history lesson and an epic storyteller. I hope he gets a Pulitzer. Notre Dame should be proud of his accomplishments. He could be a professor, and certainly I'd buy his book if he puts one out. How about that?
Wow, thank you all. And meanwhile, first, before there's a book, we got to get to victory. So if anyone wants to help, we're trying to help friends buy a strike drone in the east near Bakhmut. So UkrainianFreedomNews.com. Thank you all together here, and happy Independence Day for everyone who likes freedom, loves freedom all around the world.
And to you too. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important, that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?